Michael Steele. Joining me now from Chicago, Democratic Congressman Krishnamoorthi, who's a member of the House Intelligence Committee. I want to just take what Michael Steele said to me, Congressman, good to see you, by the way, and put it to you. The House decided not to go to court to compel certain people to testify who did not agree to testify. So I think there's two pieces to address here. One is the reason the House doesn't have as complete a record as it would like to have is because you wanted people to testify who either refused or were refused by the administration to testify. So the idea that you didn't pursue that in court is now a talking point that if you thought it was that important, why didn't you?
Well, I think that the lead impeachment manager, Chairman Schiff, outlined the reasons very well in his closing of the opening statements last week, namely that, basically it takes months, if not years, to go through the process of trying to enforce a subpoena based on our experience last year with some other subpoenas. And essentially what the president would be doing is he'd be able to time his own impeachment to the point where perhaps a subpoena would not be enforced until after the election. And then at that point, the whole issue is moot. And so that's why it's so important to press forward. And it was important in this case, given the enormous evidence that was already gathered, to move to the next step, which was taking the impeachment vote and bringing it to the Senate, where, as you know, the Senate can subpoena witnesses and the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court is presiding.
So, as a lawyer, tell me how you make this case. The idea is we couldn't do it in a timely fashion. We got a lot of information. Clearly, House managers and you, members of the Democratic conference, believe that there is enough evidence to impeach because you all voted for impeachment. But the Senate has other tools and similar tools that it can use to compel people to testify. And by the way, the big magic one is John Bolton, who has said now that he will testify. What's your argument to people who say, well, why didn't you call him? He wasn't coming when you called him.
Exactly. We tried. He basically said we're going to litigate this to death. And now we learn that he's willing to testify in the Senate. One other thing which is very important, which is time is of the essence. There's an ongoing crime, as alleged by Democrats. And we believe that military assistance to Ukraine is still being conditioned to some degree, and a White House meeting to some degree on how the Ukrainians behave. And we don't know if this is happening in other contexts as well. And so I think that, we have to move quickly to prevent this from happening, not only with Ukraine, but in any other context as well.
Congressman, what is the message that you want to send to the senators to say this week, this is the opportunity to get this right? If they make a decision, possibly next Saturday or next Sunday, in a vote to not call these witnesses, what's the consequence of that for your House, for the People's House, Congress?
Well, I think it could be grave. As lead impeachment manager Schiff said, the truth is going to come out. And when it comes out, I think that, these senators who basically voted 10 or 11 times last week to block any additional witnesses from coming forward or any additional documents are going to have to reckon with a populace or an electorate who says, where were you when these votes were taken? And now we've learned that X has come out. And so I think that for those people, whether they want to do the right thing, as you had mentioned, or they're concerned about their electoral prospects, they need to think really hard about, do they want to be on the wrong side of that question in the future? I respectfully submit that, for them, it would be much better to actually know what is the full truth. And then once they take their vote, they can say, we let all the evidence come out on the table.
Congressman, I appreciate that you're always on a show with me, but this is my first, weekend outing in my new time slot. I don't really want to make a habit of thank you. I don't want to make a habit of reading Trump tweets because we have other news to talk about. But there is this one, and we just put it up, and it does. I want to know if it troubles you. It troubles me a little bit. Shifty Adam Schiff is a corrupt politician and probably a very sick man. He has not paid the price yet for what he has done to our country. A normal human would find that a little threatening, a little dangerous.
Absolutely. This is the type of you know, we've seen him do this with regard to witnesses. I'm sure that you remember what he said about Michael Cohen and so forth. And to do that with regard to a member of Congress is especially galling because there are a lot of people out there that are, you know, potentially sick and depraved who actually pay attention to the literal kind of words of his tweets. And so, you know, I think that that's why, you know, we have to be on guard. And obviously, Adam Schiff is doing an excellent job. And I think that he has to continue and press forward, and we are going to back him up.
Congressman, good to see you as always. Thank you. Congressman Raja Krishnamoorthi is a member of the House Intelligence Committee.